another episode. No, I'm going to start again because I always go too fast. So I'm going to count.
Okay.
I need one of those board things. I think I
I'll
run
send you
things
mine. I
together.
need it.
Okay. All right. One, two, three. Welcome to another episode of Wisdom on the Front Porch. And today we're going to share Debbie's wisdom. She's had several businesses. She's just an amazing, wonderful person. So, Debbie, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, where do you want me to start? From the beginning?
Not yet, not yet. We'll get there. How are you
Well,
today and what are you doing today?
well, today I am talking to you and I'm so excited about it. Thank you so much for taking the
Oh,
time. I'm very honored. Of all the people that I've met through the connected leadership, your spirit just stood out to me, and I was like, oh, I want to meet her.
thank you.
I'm really excited about people and their energy. I really pick up on that a lot. But today I am just getting off of vacation and getting ready to get back to work on this little company that I'm building, and so I'm getting excited about that. Uh, Rested for about 10 days. It's time to get back to
There you
work.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, talking on that, you're just starting out, but yeah, you've had other businesses. So, let's go back a little bit and talk about your other businesses and why you're not doing them anymore. What was that journey like for you? Let's kind of go to the first one you built.
Yeah, well, the very first business I ever built was when I was about 23, 24 years old, and I did it with a mentor, Kathy Callaghan, and we built a exercise studio called Body Talk.
Ah,
And yeah, it was so I've always been really athletic since I was about 15, 16 years old. I started running, and I became very interested in uh, exercise of any type, really. I did the step, I did the aerobics. I was the aerobic queen in the 80s.
awesome. I loved
Had the little
aerobics.
the little thing off the shoulder, the little knee socks up to your
Yeah,
knees with the high heels, the whole bit. I was Olivia Newton-John reincarnated.
there you go.
It was much prettier. But anyway, I just really love that. And so I was the sweat equity for that company when I was 24. And that was the very first company that I helped build, along with working a full-time job. And then I
Oh,
became a
wow.
sales manager for the Better Business Bureau. So I helped build that for 2 years.
Okay.
And then the next company was when I was about 26 years old, almost 27. I had just gotten married, and my ex-husband now, we went to find a house, and the lady was sitting behind the desk, and she said, oh, you'd be great at this. And she was one of my husband's neighbors. And so I went and got my real estate license. And 6 months later, I left the Better Business Bureau as a sales manager and started my company with two older women. Again, I was kind of sweat equity and was fearless. And that company went bust in about 2.5 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the secretary, who was one of the partners, ran off with the secretary. The furniture and the money. She was the treasurer
Oh,
of the
wow.
company.
Oh,
And so
wow.
at 27 years old, 28, that's a really great lesson to learn really early. So
Yeah.
I remember all the amazing things, like building that company and being fearless. And those were just lessons like, don't go into business with people you don't know.
There you go.
That might be helpful. And so I had to pay back some money we borrowed from the bank. And so it was a really good lesson for me. The other companies that I've been involved in were three companies that I helped build for other people. I built an appointment desk, which was a call center for the real estate company.
Okay.
And I was a real estate agent at the time. And a gentleman named Rob Campbell came to me and said, you have something I can't teach anybody, and that's you're so good with people. I want to build this company. Would you come and build it for me? And it was a call center for real estate. Where they call you and go, we want to show your house at 2 o'clock. Is that okay?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yeah, so I built a company in Brentwood, Tennessee called the Appointment Desk, and I was there for 7 years and traveled all over the
Oh, wow.
Tennessee and up into Kentucky and built that. He sold all the companies, and then I went with one of the gentlemen who ran his mortgage company. And so John Sidwell, I worked for 14 years, helping to build his mortgage company. And we were a great team together. He was the best in what he did. And
Nice.
I was the person that could make connections with people and bring them to him, which was real estate agents, because I'd known them all. And
Yeah.
I was lucky enough that they liked me and they respected me. So that worked really well. And then the other one was during the same time I was helping to build a mortgage company, I helped to build a title company and did both of
Oh,
those at the
wow.
same time because they were the same clients. So
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
it was an easy crossover. And so in August of this year, I retired, and now I'm building my own company, which is based off my book and my seminar series. And so I am jumping into the field of public speaking, seminar series presenting, and just selling books and just helping anybody that I can on
Wow.
life and the journey that we lead. And so it's called Stepping Stones, Creating Personal Integrity. And when I came up with that about 13 years ago, I've been really working on this
Oh,
for
so
about
sorry.
for about 13 years. And people have always had said to me, like, how did you succeed being raised in a children's home, a group home with 120 kids, and being abandoned twice, and yet you have such a positive attitude and a really positive spirit?
Yeah, you
And how
do.
did you do that? And matter of fact, a preacher asked me that about 15 years ago, and I said, I'm not sure, other than I'm just surviving. Right. And he
Yeah.
said, that's not it. There's a reason. And once you find that reason, that will be your story you're supposed to share with the world. And so that's where my journey started. And so as of August of this year, I opened the doors, as you say, and I'm excited about it, scared to
That's
death, but
awesome.
excited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is your why? And by what I mean by that, because some people may not know what that means, is what is your deep reason? Not just, oh, I do it because I want to help people, but go really deep. Why do you do this? Why did you choose this specific career, this specific entrepreneurship?
Well, I think all of us have these lives that we live in, these situations as children that we don't get to choose.
Right.
I am very religious. I'm a Christian. I believe very strongly that God knew every single step that was ever going to happen to us. And I think He equips us with those abilities to overcome that if we will. And what I realized over the years, I was someone people trusted. I was someone that they thought was very authentic, and I'm kind of like been an old soul. I've had wisdom that other people didn't have, but it's probably because I lived with 120 kids my whole life that were all damaged, and I had to learn to maneuver that. And
Wow.
I saw so many that didn't do well. They crashed and burned because it's so hard to get outside that fear and take on something that you don't recognize, and it's easier to stay inside a fearful situation of what's recognizable to you. When they
Yeah.
always say that people will go back to what they know because they're too fearful to step forward. And I
Right.
think that's what happens. And I I wanted to people to understand that it can be done by anybody, and it can be.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
truly believe if one person can do it, anyone can do it. But it takes a ton of sacrifice, intentional living. It takes a lot of not being able to do the same things that kids your age are doing. I never got to do that, but
Yeah.
I knew the dream of succeeding and not living in that world that was so dark, that was so loud, that was so ugly, was meant more to me of escaping that than anything I'd miss out on. And I
Oh,
miss,
wow.
yeah. And I don't know. It was just very important to me, the dream of being successful, the dream of being respected, the dream of
Yeah.
being of people looking at me and saying, now there goes someone with some integrity, there goes someone with some honor. That's always meant a lot to me. I've been surrounded by a lot of people in my life, like growing up at the children's home, the people in the community, they didn't have to step forward. Half the community were calling us the bad kids that they didn't want their children to play with, even though all of us were abandoned or abused and ended up there because we had terrible parents or no parents.
Right.
But, as adults, they would judge. And then you had another set of people who were so welcoming and loving and kind and wanted to help you and wanted to see you succeed. Those are the people I followed.
Nice. That's,
Those were the people that
yeah,
stuck in my head of what I remember. Those were the people that I learned gratitude from. Those were the people that I learned that I was going to have to earn what I got out of life. But if I was lucky, there would always be someone there to extend a hand if I'd just grab hold. And I've always been really good about that. I've always been really good about recognizing people who wanted to help and letting them help.
yeah,
And
very powerful because
yeah,
you have to be willing to allow that to happen.
you
Being,
do.
I don't know if it was Bob Proctor that said it or who said it, but um, and I don't know the phrase real well, but it says where your focus is, that's where you go. And if your focus was on the good in people and that integrity and stuff, then that, yeah, I mean, you
Yeah,
proved that that it's
right.
true.
Well, and I've been teased my whole life about how having rose-colored glasses, but my whole
Oh,
life has been every business I've ever done has involved people. You
yeah.
can't deal with people if you don't like them. You just
It's,
can't. And you can't deal with people if you're going to look for the bad in them. I always look for the good. And I can just
yeah,
about always find something good in somebody. If I can't, I stay so far away from those people. And there
yeah,
are some people like that. And I guess early training of being a little girl, again, around so many personalities, I learned how to recognize that energy, that whatever. And man, it just stands up like the hair on the back of my neck. And I'm like, no, those are people I
yep,
will definitely stay far away from. And I've listened to that intuition that I have. I've
yeah,
always listened to it, and I still do. My husband is in the insurance business, and so he sees the worst of the worst.
oh,
And so
oh,
it is so funny. We've been married 6 years, just our 6 year anniversary is a couple of weeks ago.
congratulations.
Yeah, and his people at work, he was had like 48 people who work for him, and they would always say, "Thank you for making him so nice." I'm like, "No, he's always been nice. It's just I softened him a little."
There you go.
You know? And he's made me, yeah, and he's helped me to toughen a little, although and that's not really true because I'm tougher than else. I really, truly am. And anybody who's ever been on the other end of it knows it. And I always say, like, look, if you don't think I know how to protect myself or handle a situation after coming from what I come from, then you're not real bright because I do. The difference is I have chose to interact with people in the world in a very different way.
Yes,
And
yes, you
I,
do.
I have been paid well for knowing how to communicate with people. So that's what I do. And I'm not going to argue with you. I'm not going to fight with you. And, I don't know if most people know this, but you cannot argue with someone who's not willing to argue with you. It's impossible. It is.
That is so true.
It is.
That's
And
so
I don't
true.
want people like, well, they were. And I'm like, oh, you can't. And I don't. And I never have. But I choose to always um, be the person that I'm going to be proud of. It's my personal
Yes.
integrity that's on the line. And, and that's another reason, like in writing the book, most people don't have a clue who they are.
Yeah.
They'll tell you who they are, and you're like, who are you talking about? I mean, have you ever met a person you're like, I don't recognize who you're talking about. I know you
Yep.
said that cute,
I
but
have.
and it's and I think that's almost like a normal case because it takes a lot to figure out who you actually are, what you stand for, what you believe in, what your convictions are, and then to stand up to them. It takes a
Yeah.
lot to look at your weaknesses and change those. It takes a lot of honesty, and most of us don't know how to be honest with ourselves. And that's something I've always been. I've always been really honest about who I am. Like, even in working environments, I've always been successful, and people are like, why? And I go, because I will demand more of myself than you could ever demand from me. I will
Wow.
demand that I
Yeah.
be better than you will ever demand that I be. I had one boss say, you get more done in 3 days than people get done in 2 weeks. I've never seen anything like it. But it's a worth ethic,
Yeah.
right? And a little story here at 11 years old, when I went to the children's home, I had to get up at 5 o'clock every morning, walk across the campus, and make breakfast for 120 children every
Oh,
single day.
wow.
I lived in a dormitory on the third floor in a little iron cot. Me and three of the girls would walk over with three of the girls from the older building coming over, and we'd make breakfast at 5 o'clock for 120 kids. We go back to the dorm, get dressed, meet the bus, and go to school. In the afternoon, we'd come home, we'd do the same thing. We go back to the cafeteria to make dinner for 120 kids. Now that's a worth ethic. Those are
Yeah.
the kind of things that are embedded in you. And, um, I hate cooking. I'm terrible at it. Big old cans, opening big old cans of stuff. So I've never liked to cook. And but I got a great worth ethic from it. But
Right.
I didn't learn how to cook well, but could care less. That's why they have restaurants. But, it's just things like that that they build you, they
Yeah.
develop you. They make you who you are when they're all combined. And I get really frustrated when people make such judgments about people and know nothing about them. I'm a little prissy. I walk in a room and I can always see it, the arms across. They're like, oh, look at prissy butt here. But, they have no clue where I came from. But if
Yeah.
you'll give me 5 minutes with them, everything will change, you know? And I just think if we would soften our approach to everybody and take a moment to see what made them, what developed them, why do they think like they think, why do they behave like they behave? We don't know their stories, and we all have stories. All of us do, and it's a very frustrating thing to me. I'm the type of person I can go to a restaurant. My husband looks over and some a motorcycle man with big tattoos and a big Harley jacket on is crying. And my husband goes, what'd you do to him? I said, we're talking about fixing his life. And he's like, I'll leave y'all alone for a moment. But they tell me everything,
And that's
And I'm like,
something.
take a
Yeah.
minute and find out why people think like they think. And, you don't have the right to tell someone they're wrong and how they think. You only have the right to disagree with them, right? I mean, you just don't. You can't tell them they're wrong. Not when it's their upbringing, it's their life experience, it's their perception of life.
Right. Right.
It's how it develops them. You can't tell them they're wrong. You can tell them you disagree and that you see things differently and your perception is different, but you can't tell them they're wrong,
Yeah.
you know?
Because they're not. That's what they grew up with. That's what they know. That's why there are so many books out and seminars and webinars and teachings and videos about mindset and
Right.
changing it,
Right.
because we all grow up with something
Mm-hmm.
that maybe isn't the truth and we believed it for years, and then we have to change that.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's how to handle money, it's how to look at each other, it's how to work or not work,
Mm-hmm.
how if we sabotage ourselves and we don't even realize we're doing it, it
Right.
all comes back to those things that we were taught, that we were brought up with, that we
Mm-hmm.
heard so many times.
Mm-hmm.
um, it reminded me of someone who's been in an abusive situation.
Right.
Maybe when they first started out and somebody said, oh, that's just a dumb thing to do. you don't ever get it right. And
Mhm.
after a while, you keep saying these over and over and over,
Right,
which, some people use as a tactic. Pretty soon they start believing it.
right.
And then when they hear somebody say, wow, you're really smart, they don't even hear it. I mean, it just goes right
Hmm.
past them. And then they hear it again and it's like, yeah, I don't think so. And then they hear it again. Eventually it's like, wait, what? Did you
Right,
say you think I'm smart? Well,
right,
that's an
right,
interesting thing. And it's like, well, yeah, I've been telling you that for the last 3 months,
right, right. Yeah.
And then they have to keep hearing it because they've got to counter all those times they heard the negative and the times they've told themselves the negative. So
Hmm.
they've got a double whammy there that they've got to hear. And that's why it's really difficult for some people to accept a compliment because maybe
Hmm.
they've never received one in their life
Right.
and they don't know what to do with it.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
uncomfortable. So, yeah.
yeah. Well, and I think maybe it goes beyond uncomfortable. It's like they just never heard it. It's
Hmm.
like, saying here's an orange when all they've ever had their life is apples.
Hmm.
And it's
Hmm.
like, okay, what do I do with it? You know?
Right, right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
true.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know how to make apple pie and apple this and apple that. What do you do with an orange?
Well, another example, the year I graduated from high school, there were 27 of us who graduated. I was the only one who went to college, the only one.
Oh, wow.
And if you could get in, you could go because we were raised in the Tennessee Baptist Children's Home. And so there you could go to any private Baptist college for free.
Okay.
So I
Oh,
went to
wow.
Yeah, I went to Belmont, which is a very prestigious school here in Nashville. It's a private Baptist college. It was at the time, it's non-denominational now. They have
Yeah.
dropped, but at the time.
But
And
it was free, and
it
you're
was
the only one who
free
took advantage of
and
that. Why do you think that is?
fear. Fear.
Fear?
And
Wow.
I was scared to death, LS. I was scared to death. There was no one to talk to. I just knew here were your choices. You left and went to work or you went to school. And I thought, and I can remember I wanted to go to school, but I remember thinking, scared to death, am I smart enough? Am I going to fit in?
Yeah.
My life had never been normal. None of it had. And that's what I had to remind myself. Nothing about your life has ever been normal, but you will take this chance and you will go. And the worst that can happen, if you fail, they can kill you, but they can't eat you. So just keep going. And that was always my motto. And it was scary. I was scared to death. They dropped me off with a box 4 weeks after I graduated from high school, the children's home did, and they said, have a great life. And that's where I
Wow.
lived. I lived there every Maymester, every summer. I had to take classes the whole because I had nowhere to go. So I had to live in the dorm and I'd move over. I lived in Wright dorm and they'd move me over during the summer where all the foreign students lived because they couldn't go home either. And I worked at Castor Knott's, which is kind of like a Macy's, and
Okay.
every Tuesday and Thursday night, all day Saturday, all day Sunday to get my extra spending money and my books and food money because I could go to,
Right.
but and it, room and board was paid for, but it closed down on Friday afternoon, so I had to eat over the weekend, so I had to
Oh,
work.
yeah.
And so, but stuff like that. But I was scared to death. But it took 2 years before anyone knew where I was raised. And they were like, what'd you get for Christmas? Well, I didn't get a darn thing for Christmas.
Yeah. It's
But it
like
was,
I'm in a hole.
and what did you do Thanksgiving? Well, I was working at Castor's all Thanksgiving. And and then the girls started asking me some questions because I was always happy go lucky. I was always had a smile on my face. Matter of fact, there was a lady in the cafeteria who called me Miss Prispaw. And one of the girls said, what do you mean you don't or your religion or something? I go, no, well, I was raised in the children's home and so I have no place to go, so I stay here. And of course, there's no one to buy me Christmas presents. And and she's like, what? How come none of us knew this? You're so happy. You never are frowning. You're
Isn't
always
it
got a
funny how they associate that if
smile.
you're in a children's home, you shouldn't be happy, but
Right.
you're always so happy. And it's
Yeah.
like, oh,
Yep.
that's interesting.
But
I
they
wouldn't
went
have,
back when
I
we
don't
went
know.
to, yeah, we went to breakfast the next morning. The little lady that worked in the cafeteria, and they go, "You'll never believe this," they say to her. "Miss Prissy Pot, as you call her, was raised in an orphanage in a children's home." And she's like, "No, not Miss Prissy Pot. Are you kidding?" But it's been that kind of reaction my whole life. And
Wow.
it's and so I just find it fascinating. But it kind of makes you stop and go, you're right, though, about how people prejudge everybody,
Yeah.
right? And you again, it's so important to stop and slow down a minute and get to know somebody. And because I used to think that people were real quiet, were kind of stuck up until I found out they were scared to death of people.
That
And
was me. I didn't know people thought that I was stuck up because I didn't say anything till I was a senior in high school.
see, and
And
you were
somebody said, we used to always think you were stuck up. Now that we got to know you, we know you're just scared. And it's like, why would you think I was stuck up? You know?
because you didn't talk. I used to do that
Yeah. Isn't
with
that
people. And some of
something?
my best friends have become, yeah, became best friends because I started noticing that was a judgment I was making. I was always wrong. So now I'm going to find out.
Yeah, there you go. That's the way to
And
do it.
I'm
Yeah.
all right with stuck up people, so I get along with them too. But more importantly, I want to make someone feel comfortable that
Yeah.
was afraid, like, and I am the common denominator in our group of women friends. I'm the one who brought everybody in, and they
Oh,
become
nice.
friends from because I'm the one that, like, we're going to treat each other with respect, with kindness. We're all different, and we
Yeah.
all are very different. But I'm the common denominator between them, and they'll say, like, "How'd y'all all meet?" "Well, we met through Deb. We met through Deb. We met through Deb." But you bring people in who some are really outgoing and they're great, but
Yeah.
some are a little shyer and don't really know how to take that first step. Like serving on boards of directors and stuff like that. I was always in sales my whole life. I was very good at it. But I did not want to be the person when you walk in a room, everybody turns their back and wants to go in the other direction because they thought you were going to try and sell them something. That
Oh,
was,
yeah.
yeah. And I was never that person. People would come towards me and because there's this desperation of people. And when I was helping to do some sales training, I would say, like, quit being so desperate. People smell it. That's why they're running in the other direction when you walk in a room.
Yeah. But that's true. How many times, am I in a meeting that's talking about sales and it's like, yeah, you're not there to sell them. You're there
Right.
to talk about something. You're there to meet a need that they have. And
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, see, and that's why I've always been successful. And it might take me a year to get you, but I'll get you eventually. And
A
I used
little
to keep,
dog too.
yeah, I used to keep a little record, but it was
Yeah.
like the Zig Ziglar, give them what they want, and you always get what you want. And I truly
Oh, I
believe
like
that,
that.
but
Yeah.
that's the truth. And if you see people as or sales, I've always looked at sales as um, trying to meet that need, right?
Yeah.
And it will always come to you if you're really honest about that and not pressuring and stuff like that. And I just never have been. And I really do think that's why I was always successful at it. My husband says I could sell you a boat in a desert, but I go, but there's no need. So
Yeah. So why bother?
yeah. Yeah. But
Oh,
it's just certain things about life that,
yeah.
if you come from it with a place of integrity, it's just better for everybody all the way around.
All
A
the way
win-win
around.
situation needs to be in everything.
Yeah,
It does.
absolutely. I cannot believe this time has gone so fast, just
Mm.
so fast. What a joy to speak with
Oh.
you. Now, tell us again what your business is. That's we've learned how to build businesses and what people are looking for. So, what is it that you do, and how can people get in touch with you?
Okay, well, it's called Stepping Stones Creating Personal Integrity. That is my book. It's on Amazon. You can just do Debbie Greer Chamberlain. You can find me right away, or Stepping Stones Creating Personal Integrity. My website is debbiegreerchamberlain.com. I've branded my name.
There
So,
you go.
and then
Me too.
yeah, I'm on Instagram, which I just started. It's so
Oh,
much fun.
nice.
I hired a little girl who's my little media girl, and because I know nothing. And she's great. So she like films me while I make these little reels we finally figured out I just need to talk instead of reading from a prompter,
There you go.
that they're much better. She's like, I've been watching your podcast and you're so good, but when you read these things, she goes, it's not very authentic. Let's change it up. So they're
There you
much
go.
better. So
And it's true. Yeah.
yeah,
Because you're talking from your heart. And
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And so
yeah,
it's Deb Greer Chamberlain. And then, of course, Facebook, Debbie Greer Chamberlain, 1023. But I am a speaker. I'd be happy to come and speak. I do seminars. These are usually anywhere from 4 to 20 people. They are very, very intimate, and it's just such a personal thing. They're very, very powerful. And I wrote the seminar before I ever wrote the book. And somebody said, for credibility, you have to write a book. And I was like, are you serious? I
oh,
can't
I've
write a
got the
book.
seminar. I'll just put it in the book.
So the book came from the seminar, and the book also has a lot of stories about me growing up at the children's home, me and
Okay.
my sweet little seven, the seven of us. So there's,
Wow.
yeah, yeah, I didn't do a lot because it wasn't fair to tell their stories. Uh,
Yeah.
and it's, the ones I chose there were so many I could have just
Mhm.
hours and hours and hours of abuse, but decided not to go down that avenue either. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. And so, I'm still looking at some things with my family, like the ones of us that are left. There are 4 of us left out of the 7. And, maybe writing a book about our whole story. I'd like to include them. I didn't want it in my book because again, it wasn't my story to
Yeah.
tell.
Right.
Um,
Right.
so that's something I might be planning in the future with them. But
Okay.
anyway, so they can hire me for a seminar and then go to my website, debbiegreerchamberlain.com, and inquire. And I'd love to speak anywhere, you know.
Yeah. Thank
Right
you
now, I'm
so
gonna play
much
in
for
my own
being here.
backyard for a while.
Yeah. Those, you got to do that. You got to
Yeah.
do that.
Well, it's where
Yeah.
all my support is.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
these are
Yeah.
people who've known me for 30 years, and people that are so supportive and want to help, and have pushed and pushed and pushed me to finally get this done.
There you go.
So I'm like,
Yeah.
well, hire me then. Here we go. So
Awesome. Well, I'm so glad you have your book.
that's pretty sweet.
Well, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Thank you, our audience, for giving us this time out of your day and spending a little bit of time with Debbie and with myself and learning how to improve and maybe adjust a little different perspective on what you're doing. And we'll
Yeah.
see you next time on Wisdom on the Front Porch.
Thank you for joining us today on Wisdom on the Front Porch with your host, Ellis Kirkpatrick. You can find us on our website, wisdomonthefrontporch.com, see previous episodes of the podcast, and view issues of the magazine. Did you know you can submit questions, leave reviews, or suggest topics? You can also tell us where your favorite front porch location is and what it means to you. We hope you gain value and insight from today's or previous talks. We appreciate your support for us so we can continue to provide value and expertise to you and others. Subscribe to Wisdom on the Front Porch magazine and join in next week when we bring you another great insight into the world of entrepreneur culture and lifestyle. Make today a great day. Always believe that something wonderful is going to happen.